Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about innovating for growth. What does innovating for growth mean? The word innovation has been in focus, has been talked about quite a lot in the recent times because of technology, because of research, because of exponential difference that has happened in different fields. But what is innovating for growth and how does it happen? So, whenever we talk about innovation leading to growth could be because of products, could be because of some great ideas, could be because of new markets, could be because you want to solve a problem, and that problem that has been solved has created a completely different proposition for the customers, or it could be just that you have gained a competitive edge in the way currently business is happening. It could be any one of these reasons which is creating that kind of an opportunity for growth to be substantially higher than what it would have been if there was no innovation. And there are some examples that some of us are very familiar with. When you talk about product innovation, often people talk about Apple, how it has innovated, continuing to innovate its products from time to time. We have also been familiar with Airbnb, which is completely disrupted the entire space of transportation and travel, and particularly travel and the whole concept of having assets for actually hosting people. And then, of course, when we talk about process innovation, we have examples of our own Indian outsourcing industry, which has managed to do huge amounts of business by taking over processes or modifying those processes from other countries, other businesses elsewhere in the world, bringing them to India and doing things differently and in a cost-effective manner. So while there are all of these examples, I would like to relate to a few examples from my own life journey and some of the businesses that I have been involved with, how innovation for growth has actually taken place and what difference it has made. The first story I would like to share with all of you is that of Aptech. In Aptech, there were the days of computer education, which many of you may not be very familiar today, but computer education was something which was primarily available only through the private sector. And therefore, there were a few brands at that point of time like Data Pro, NIIT, and Aptech. And at Aptech, way back in the 80s, when Ganesh and I were part of Aptech, when we started being part of Aptech, there were just 9 centers, 7 of which were company-owned, and 2 of which were what is known as franchise-owned or business partner-led. In a matter of few years, the business model was changed in such a way that the company would actually rely upon business partners significantly, and that led to an exponential growth from just 7 centers. Even those 2 centers which were there, which were business partners led, the number of centers grew to 1,400 centers. And these centers predominantly, except for the 7 centers which were company owned, all the rest were actually owned by the business partners. And these centers were just not restricted to India. In fact, in a matter of 15 years, these 1,400 centers were spread across 42 countries. And 24 of those countries, Aptech was a market leader. All this happened because of the culture that was created and fostered to treat business partners as really part of the whole ecosystem of management, whether it was advertising, whether it was curriculum design, whether it was product creation. They were consulted and they were involved very actively. And that's how this kind of astronomical growth was possible to happen. And there also came a time when some of the employees who were part of Aptech also came forward to become business partners because they saw the trust, they saw the potential for growth and creating wealth for themselves was something that is possible because of the philosophy of the way Aptech completely remodeled itself and created a completely new business model and became a market leader in its own right. Let me give you another example. This is of a new product launch. Now, once again, in the 90s, many of you might not even have been born at that time. Computers was a mystery for most people because it was simply not accessible, it was expensive, and the length and breadth of the country, anybody who knew computers was considered something special, and that is a phenomenon that we tried to change. At Zee Education, we did two things in terms of product design which radically changed the way computer education was delivered, whether it was through Aptech or universities or whatever was the place where people were able to access computer training. So what we did was, first of all, we tried to look at the way the product was being delivered, which was typically you go to a computer education center to learn. Here, we made almost 70% of that through television, and the remaining 25 or 30% could be learned from a friendly neighborhood location, a center called Z Point, which was set up across 250 locations across the country in a matter of 2 years. Not only was it possible for people to access this education from India, but even some of the neighboring countries, they were also able to access this kind of learning. The second intervention, which was equally exciting, was that at that point of time, we just had very serious content being delivered through Doordarshan channel for education. We completely transformed the method of delivery and made it edutainment, bringing in all the show elements into the program and got the performers who are typically actors to come into the program and deliver the program. Now, the whole concept was so exciting in the 90s, where in India we were trying to get larger number of people to become aware of the potential of computers, that even the Prime Minister of the country at that time, Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao, he took interest in this program, and we were delighted when he came forward to deliver the inaugural advice on the television, and the whole country heard the Prime Minister talk about this program, and that's how there was a phenomenal acceptance to this whole idea and this concept. Now, this very model, we took it forward to other programs as well. Soon after this program called A to Z of Computers was launched, we created a similar innovation in the automobile industry. Thousands of what you call the repair people available, service personnel available across the country, roadside mechanics who have never had a professional education or training. And that's where Bajaj Auto and Zee Education came together and created this program called Bajaj Auto Clinic, which was once again shown on the television, supported by practical experience at the dealer outlet. And very soon, apart from these two programs, a similar model was taken into various other programs, and that was a phenomenally different model at that point of time, which gave birth to a completely new concept through Zee Education. Lastly, I want to talk about innovating for growth through financing. So when we talk about financing, we talk about raising funds for building a company. So GTT was born out of passion and desire to make a difference to people and talent requirement for the industry and all of that. So with a very small seed capital, this company was set up, but very soon we had 3 different VCs wanting to be part of the business, Intel Capital, Helion Ventures, and Cisco. And a little later, we had a PE also getting involved. And recently, this company has eventually got listed as GDT Data. So what I'm trying to say or highlight through this example is there is a lot of innovation required even for how the business growth can happen in terms of financing. And financing will happen when there are changes happening on the ground and there are results that actually support the need for finance. So obviously, the focus, the frugality with which you manage the finance, and of course the flexibility as you see how the market is evolving, how the customer's requirements are developing, how you are able to cope with all of those and yet continue to be successful, bringing together the right people, bringing together the right partnerships so that the solution that we put across made sense, whether it was through the hire and train model, whether it was through other talent development models that were created from time to time. So this is the other area where innovation through financing has made a huge difference. So what I would like to summarize is that, yes, innovating for growth can happen through products, through processes, through business models, in financing and all of that. But where do you begin? You need to be clear about the goals. You need to understand where are we in terms of the market position. What are the needs that the market requires? Based on that, the right model for innovation has to be chosen. So it could be incremental or it could be disruptive. But what is most important is many of you who would be joining the corporate sector or building your own businesses, it's extremely important to understand what is the DNA for innovation. How do you create that culture and foster that culture on a continual basis in your own ventures, in your own functions? And that DNA is what will eventually lead you to figure out what type of innovation is going to make sense for the growth of the activity that you're going to be engaged with. So I hope those insights from my own personal journey, working with 3 different companies, and some of the other examples that I shared with you, you find them useful and helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.